Hey, welcome out to the community podcast with the pressure washing pastor. Today, I've got a special guest on the show. Super excited to share a little bit more about him in a second. But before we get into that, I want to remind you what we're doing. I am currently transitioning for the next 3 months from learning how to grow, scale, start a pressure washing company to maybe digging in a little bit on the way that we think. And so I want you to chew on this for a second. We become whatever we chew on. Whatever we think about, we end up producing a fruit with that. And as a result, it really matters what we allow to come inside of our mind so we can become the human beings that we desire to become over life. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite different individuals over the next 3 to 6 months to share their testimony, answer 3 questions, which I believe are the 3 most important questions maybe man can ask. And my promise to you is if you tune in, you're going to be changed. You're going to start seeing business and people differently than maybe that you currently see them now. If you're here because you're wanting to grow a business, scale a business, hang out, we're about growing and scaling as well. But more importantly than making money, we want to make an impact while we're on planet Earth, because there's going to come a day that we're not here anymore. And with that being said, I'm going to bring my friend Sean Bailey onto the show. Sean, what's going on?
Good to see you, brother. How you doing?
Hey, I am far better than I deserve. I heard that you did not get much sleep last night.
I did not. I was up churning, man, trying to get ahead of things, getting back from a nice long trip up at Colorado Estes Park, just seeing all the great things the Lord has created and spending time with good people, man.
Awesome. Hopefully we can learn a little bit more about that. But what I want to do is jump right into the show and ask you the most important question that you may be asked all day. And that is, who is Sean Bailey?
All right. I'm a consummate innovator. I think anybody would agree with that. I believe I was put on this earth to help people with their things in a lot of ways. I'm a helper, Enneagram 2, recovering Enneagram 2 for anybody that's out there. Just have always felt like the Lord was just looking for me to walk alongside people. I've always been that guy to support others, and probably started off from a brokenness standpoint. I needed others much in my life. I was a only child, didn't have a huge family. So every person I met was new family, and trying to bring them into a relationship and getting to know them. And just felt at an early age, that was my calling in life, was to be a part of helping others. And then, it's become, as grown up as an adult, part of just innovating and a part of finding what is their thing, what is the next step they need to take with their thing, and kind of helping them learn how to do that, or bringing them some tools, or even just praying over them and supporting them and being an encourager. I know I've had a couple moments over the last couple of weeks where friends have been at kind of a dead end road, or even a speed bump in the road, and just felt the encouragement from the Lord. Just be like, hey, just speak into them hope and truth and grace. And I've gotten to do that most of my life. And it's a pretty cool gig, if I'm honest.
It sounds like you're on mission.
Amen. I think so. I'm like a ping pong ball, though. I'll be honest, like most people, we're bouncing from thing to thing. And when we kind of get settled back in, for the Lord to kind of pull us back and shoot us into the world again, we're like, oh yeah, like for that, so you're heading and darting pretty strong for those couple of seconds, and you get beat up along the way a little bit. But yeah, it's been fun.
Now, just catch me up on stage of life, married, kids, anything like that.
Yeah, my daughter actually turned 10 years old today. So shout out to Abigail. She's becoming a sweet young lady. And Mama and I were having a little tears this morning, just kind of watching her go off to school and thinking about, man, we're in double digits with all 3 of our kids. So we have Abby at 10, we have Isaac at 12, and Noah at 14. And they're staged perfectly right now. Like that, the timing works out, but every once in a while, one of them gets off track. But I love it when it's 10, 12, and 14. I can remember it pretty sweet. So, but yeah, my wife, Ginger, and I, we've been married for 16 years. I'm 43, and I feel like I'm always 27. They say you have that kind of mental age, and I'm like 27. Yeah, that's for sure it. But then when I let this beard grow out in the winter time and all the white shows up, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Now I remember. So, just kind of working my dream job right now. I work at Apartment Life, and it's kind of a balance of business and mission. We work in the multifamily industry, and really just get a chance to help an industry understand what it means to help people love their neighbor. And so in my work life, I oftentimes starting to get to that age. Many of you can probably relate to this. I'm at that age where I'm passing on things now, when I'm passing on the legacy. I'm not the guy doing all the things. And that's a great season of life. You know, as a leader, it's one of those seasons you really need to embrace, because if you kind of go too far past it, you'll miss it. And so I've watched my father-in-law really age well, and do that in front of myself and our family, and just watching the way that he's poured into so many leaders, and been that kind of a leader to hand things off well. I'm enjoying an early version of that season, even though I probably got another 10, 15 years of that.
Yeah, so good. I want to jump into, how do we finish well, but maybe we can have that conversation here in a few minutes. Ginger, what color hair does she have?
Just brown brunette hair. So not a ginger. Just love the name, I think.
Gotcha. Hey, if we were to go back into your childhood, maybe even before we met Christ, oftentimes we have highs and lows.
Mm.
If we were to take out like a big, piece of paper and put a timeline together, and we were to say, hey, here were some high moments, here were some low moments, would you just kind of catch me up through from like childhood to maybe even where you came to know Christ at, and just kind of walk me through the highs and lows?
Mm. That's a big one. So yeah, I grew up here, Orlando. I'm a Florida boy. There's about three of us left. We always joke when I meet another one, I'm like, "There's three of us now. The rest of us have all moved to other places." But yeah, born and raised in Florida. Had a single mom. I didn't really know my dad. I never honestly met him face to face that I can remember. But oftentimes just sought after finding kind of those male relationships, a need for that fulfillment. Went through to high school, kind of was a leader in different areas, more just because I think I wanted at that age just to be sought after, right? I wanted to be the guy who others looked up to in that way. And I think that obviously there's a good version of that. There's a bad version of that, right? And there's a codependency that can be built from that. But I probably had a good version of two of those, but had many guy figures kind of come and go in my life, and none really stuck until my stepfather when I was about 13. And he was a big influence on me. Kind of one morning about 4 a.m., just kicked my butt out of bed. He was a tile man and marble and granite contractor. And he said, "You're not going to be lazy the rest of your life. You're going to get your butt in the van. I'm going to teach you how to work." And I kid you not, I told him later, I was like, "I'm pretty sure you planned this." He acted as if he didn't, all the way to his dying breath, to be honest with you. But he took me to a 4-story condo and had me carry 85-pound bags of concrete mix up and down the steps of this condo. And it was a full pallet. All right. This is a small condo. I know now later in life that you don't have any reason for a full pallet of concrete inside of a condo. So it didn't make any sense to the type of job. We were doing a bathroom shower, man. Like, we weren't building the whole floor. So, what happened over the course of that day, though, was I just began to wrestle with, "You're not my dad," like all these different fights, right? That I wanted to have with him, but he had left to go get some other stuff. And so I'm there by myself. And it was this genius kind of moment, whether the Lord just made it happen or my dad actually had some wisdom in it, but he just allowed me to fight internally. And then when he showed up, he said, "Hey, here's your lunch. And I'm going to go to the bank and get you your money for the day." And so there was this moment of like, wait a minute, I'm not going to go off on this guy, even though I really want to, because he's paying me. So he sees value in what I'm doing. He's going to bring value to my life from this moment, even though this is the hardest thing I've probably ever done up to this point. And he came back and he said, "I'm going to tell you two things. I promise you never make more from working at Publix or any other place than you will from me. So I'll pay you well. And you'll never work harder than you did today." And when he said that, I was like, well, I sure hope so, because this was killer, right? But what really ended up playing out over the course of my youth or my teenage years and into young adult life was that emotionally, mentally, I had never gone through a gauntlet like I did that day. Because in that one day, I had to fight with the 14 years before of not having a man in my life who would lead me and challenge me in ways that would cause me to want to move forward. And so kind of in that one moment, I got probably the greatest leadership moment of my young adult life. And super thankful for that.
Hey, I'm going to interrupt for a second because we've got a phenomenal opportunity for you. If you've been thinking about opening your own pressure washing company, I'd like to invite you to a free webinar. There we'll talk about the pros and cons of opening a pressure washing, and you'll get to chat with our team about whether or not you should launch a pressure washing company in your city or not. To register for this free event, go to pressurewashingpastor.com, scroll down to the little registration button, it's blue, and click on it, and we'll take care of the rest. I look forward to seeing you there. Have a great day. Now back to our show.
That's for sure parenting advice. If you don't challenge your kids, they will challenge you. And I don't mean that you don't want to be challenged by your children. I just mean it in a way that says things are going to come up. You need to allow them the process to break down themselves so that they're not just coming. I feel like with my boys specifically, they're early teens, right? Like there's so much happening emotionally and physically kind of inside of them. They need some physicality to kind of to push them through that. They need some of that moment to kind of happen. You know, girls are a little bit different, I think, and you have to be there and sit at the kind of bedside of your daughter and listen and hear deeply. But boys, they just need some rough and tough sometimes to kind of push through in that. And so that was really foundational for me, I think, growing up. I'll fast forward to another kind of pivotal moment. End of high school, I was playing football, but also was in band. I was a trumpet player for 9 years, and we were kind of #1 band in the state of Florida. Like there was just a lot of high end, which if you think marching band, you're like, yeah, there's like, 100 people or so or whatever. We had 450 people in our marching band. Like it was a small army, to the point where when there was a fight on the field one time, the football team stood up on our side, their football team stood up, our band stood up, and then everybody sat down. Like it was like, oh, this could be a legit brawl. And you don't expect a dude holding a clarinet to throw bows, but it was going to happen, right? Like that was kind of the thing. And we pushed our people, man. Same thing I learned from my dad. Like we had people doing push-ups and licking Skittles, and they weren't allowed to eat the Skittle until the last push-up was done on the ground, kind of things like that, like hardcore, like training stuff. Well, our band director was the man who led in that place, and his name is Kenneth Pierce. He's passed since, and but was an amazing guy and just challenged me. I was the goofy kid who just wanted to make everybody laugh. I wanted everyone to like me when I was like a sophomore, and he said, "Sean, I want to see you in leadership, but your constant need and desire for everyone to like you is going to have to be like put down. Like that has to go away for you to want to be able to lead in a healthy way." And so he really challenged me to find a new level of leadership kind of within myself. And I became the band captain my senior year. I was voted in because I was Mr. Popular, right? Everybody liked me because that's what I did. I made people like me. That was a part of that need for others in my life. But what I didn't realize was going to happen on the other side of that is I was going to become the pusher. I was going to be what my dad was for me. I was going to begin to be the challenger, and not everybody likes to be challenged. And over the course of the next year, so many people went through hard things, but then accomplished great things in their life. We became the #1 band in the state of Florida. We represented Florida for the 4th of July parade up in DC. Like there's just these cool moments of like affirmation. And I didn't realize how big of a deal that was until this was probably like 5-6 years ago. I was at a 7-Eleven, and this guy behind the counter of the 7-Eleven I'm just checking out. I don't really recognize the guy, to be honest with you. And he goes, "Hey man," he goes, "Do you remember Sean Bailey, right? Like, I'm Philip." And I was like, "Philip, I'm sorry, brother. I don't recognize you." And he took his hat off, and I was like, "Oh, crap, I know this guy. This is a guy I was in band with." And I was like, "Hey man, how are you doing? Like, what's going on?" He goes, "Dude," and he's like looking around for someone to tell. He goes, "This is the guy who pushed us, man. This guy right here." Like, and he just started just affirming all the hard stuff that I had just done. And it was my son was there to see this, and he goes, "That was one of the greatest things that ever happened in my life when I got to go to DC and represent Florida, man." This is a guy working at the 7-Eleven. He's remembering this moment of challenge and success that he had 20 years ago and just relishing in that and loving that. And so really just began to see a theme in my life of there's value in challenge, there's value in push. And that would begin to push me further on and into my college years. I became a pretty successful guy. Everything I went to go after, I would accomplish. And that pushed me to Savannah, Georgia, went to Savannah College of Art and Design, got a Dean Scholarship for 3D animation. I thought that was going to be my gig. I got offered a job from Disney to be a 3D animator. This was out of high school. So I was like, "Oh, they'll pay me way more if I just go to college for this." What's that?
You're thinking retirement. I'm done.
Yeah. Well, they offered, I think it's like 45 grand out of high school to go work for them directly. This is my Forrest Gump story, Josh. So my buddies who did go to work with them directly, they worked for the first 3D animated movie called Dinosaurs, which that team became either DreamWorks or Pixar, is my understanding. So like, they're set. Like, that was it. I went off the other way, and I still had things to learn. God was obviously teaching me through college. But ultimately, I ended up driving a radio station van in college because it was a good gig. I heard it on the radio. I was like, I can do that. It's marketing. I can just sit out in front of these places and tell them about the radio station. Well, that a month later turned into me being on the air. That turned into 6 months later, me being on 6 different stations across the Southeast, and then becoming a nationwide radio producer for Clear Channel Radio, which now is iHeartMedia and all that. And I had reached success, man. Like, I'd accomplished more than I ever thought I would. And every time I came home, right, I was the kid. It wasn't me coming back and being like, "Well, I should probably move back home because things aren't working out." Like, I had succeeded, and I realized now, like, I had probably pushed myself so much for success, because there was this value that if, as an only child, single mom, if I didn't keep getting to the next rung, if I were to fall backwards, there's nothing back there for me. And so there was this fear that began to build up. And while the Lord had played these little moments in my life, right? My grandmother was Christ in my life at an early age, took me to church with her. She went to a Messianic church, so more Old Testament than New, kind of got the law. Jesus was, fulfillment of that, but we didn't really get much more than that. There was no discipleship, no nothing. So I learned how to speak Hebrew. I can do the Jewish prayers, like all that, but not much substance for my heart inside of that. And so success became my gospel in a lot of ways. That was the thing that I sought after. And so here I am, kind of killing it in radio, doing all that I need to do. And I got offered, I started dating a girl, and her uncle lived in LA, had a very big career in the audio production industry. And he was doing the post-production for The Amazing Race. And so we had a wedding out there. We're like, "Hey, let's just go fly out there. We'll go to this wedding. We'll kind of see the world." And while we were in LA, we slept together. And that began this kind of slow fade process of me beginning to see my life fall apart, and me kind of getting to right at the edge of success. We were at a house in Hollywood Hills that had a studio in it, that he had offered a job for me to stay there, like all of these amazing opportunities. And while at this wedding, there was a woman at our table, and she ran a rehab up the mountain. And she said, kind of while we're at the table, it's LA, everybody does the, "Hey, what do you do? Where are you going to work?" Like, kind of, how do I play off of you reality. And she said something like, "Hey, if you ever get into trouble, like, you can come up to the rehab and we'll take care of you there, kind of a thing. And there was this like voice in my ear that just said, if you stay here, that's where you'll be. Like, just clear as day. That's where you'll be. And so a little bit of fear came from that. A little bit of worry came from that, but not much more. This is still success. Like, I've got a 6-figure job offer. I'm going to have this house to live in until we get on our feet. Like, lots of opportunities. I'm going home. I'm telling everybody I'm moving to LA, and this big thing is about to pop off. And at this time, by the way, in radio, I'm in the top 10 of radio producers nationwide. Worked for their hip hop division, covered most of the beat stations nationwide, and worked with a lot of awesome people there. But radio is kind of fickle. Like, I could be on 100 stations, but I'm still living in Savannah, Georgia, working behind this small little cruddy desk, but I'm getting some checks from all across the country. Like, it's very franchise-ish kind of in that way. But anyway, so we come back to Savannah, and that's when my girlfriend realizes she's pregnant. Basically, I'm honestly making some bacon one morning, and the smell of it is just so strong to her. Something's up, like, just it triggers. And so she decides to have an abortion. And so this kind of huge, like, upswing of life begins to kind of have its first plateau in this curve that's about to be a massive fall. And all my friends in radio at that time, it was kind of like, hey, it's her body, your choice. You don't really have a voice in this. And there was, so I immediately became this like, wait, this wannabe man, there's no substance to who you are, Sean, in this. And so in this major moment, there's nothing in you that can fight in this moment. There's no spirit, there's no righteousness, there's no mercy, there's no great, like, you're just still broken. And so I created kind of this false self version of myself for so many years, and that it was kind of a chink in that armor had finally broken. And so the day comes, and I go to the abortion clinic with her, and it was about 3 blocks from where my house was in Savannah. And I had seen a woman on the corner of that abortion clinic many, many days. And she was there with her Bible, and she would sit and pray with people, just an older woman. And she wasn't there that day. And I just was sitting outside by myself. And I think it was about 5 hours. I'm sitting there feeling the moment, realizing that I've been seeking success my whole life. Remember, I didn't have a father early in my life. And then when I kind of looked for what's my gauge on success, the answer that I got from my mom was, don't be like your dad. Well, my dad wasn't a murderer. And I felt, here I am. I just paid a $500 check to abort my child. I am worse than my father. And so this whole need of success, accomplishment, all these things had just been put right into frame of like, well, here's the bar, and you can barely come over that bar anymore. You're done at this point. You're worse than. And then I called my grandmother, who's always been Christ in my life, and I said, Nima, I said, this is what's happening. This is what's going on. And she said, Sean, you know that God has been chasing you your whole life, and you know that you've been going after everything else other than him. And in this moment, I just want to remind you that he has paid the price for this since the beginning of time. Before this day ever came, he died for it already on the cross, and everything that would come after in your life. And you just need to submit to him and give it to him. And so, I asked the Lord later, by the way, why that woman wasn't there that day to pray with me or to read some scripture with me. And the Lord just clearly said, Sean, I needed you to know the weight of your sin that I took to the cross for you. Wow. And he did. He gave me freedom that day, and that began a long journey back.
That's a lot. If we had a listener right now that found themselves, I don't know, held responsible, guilty for a decision that they made, whether it's abortion or something like it, what would be your message to them where their story could be a turnaround story?
I wrestled for about 3 or 4 years with just still the weight of, yes, I was forgiven, but what I had done, I felt like I had to repay. And oftentimes it kind of became this like other need for performance. Like, oh, I have to now, I've taken this child out of the world. I now have to bring 2 life's worth of impact because of what I did there. And the Lord just kindly reminded me, like, hey, your child is with me here. I've paid for this. Your sin is mine. And so, kind of the things that we hold in this world, just remember that through Christ, through the redemptive nature of the work on the cross, we have given fully. The theological word is a double imputation. We have imputed our sin into him for the cross. He's fully taken. He's received all of that. He's died with that. But he's given us in return righteousness. And that righteousness is fully meant. In scripture, it says, I've separated your sin as far as the east is from the west. He did that, and he will do that for you. Whoever is struggling with this right now, just hear that he will do that for you, not for the purpose that you can move forward and just be successful, but he will do that for the purpose that you will be able to rightly turn and look at him again, right? The way that the Genesis account comes to be, right? Like, he wanted us to dwell with him.
Come on.
That's the purpose. Like, creation wasn't created so that we could look away from him and just go, everything is beautiful. It was created so that we could look at him and see who he really is and walk with him, right? Your question, what's purpose on the planet? To be fruitful and multiply. Well, to be fruitful, right? We all call that like multiplication and growth and like all that. Fruit is about us bearing something that has been given to us, right? Our fruit doesn't bear on our own trees, it bears on other people's trees, right? And so as God has bore fruit of righteousness into us, we can bear fruits of righteousness into the world towards the next person. We can give that away. We can do that freely until you give of that brokenness and that soil, right? Soil is full of poo. Let's be real. Like, soil is full of stuff that's yucky that you would not want to touch on a regular basis, but it is the thing that makes the soil fertile for fruit to be possible within the trees. That's the same as is true for our sin. Our sin, when given to God, can be used as the fertilizer that creates goodness in the world and righteousness within the world. And don't be afraid of that process. Don't be afraid of him allowing that brokenness to be your story and this uniqueness of your story for the life of another.
When I first started my own pressure washing business, I did not know what soft washing was, nor did I know marketing, sales, or even how to manage my finances.
Take the guesswork out of it. We have taken all of the knowledge we've gotten and wrapped it into video courses. It's a 7-figure blueprint for a pressure washing company that you can get at pressurewashingpastor.com. Go there, scroll down to video courses, and purchase it. We guarantee you'll get the value or your money back.
So go ahead and click pause, head over to the website. Now, unclick pause and back to your show. So good. We could we have already gone almost 30 minutes on our just opening, getting to know you and hearing the story. But if you're still listening, I think we have to examine ourselves and see whether we're producing fruits of righteousness or fruits of unrighteousness or evil works. And the beautiful news here is that in a moment and in a blink of an eye, we can literally go from one kingdom to another, and it's no more than one step away. And so I want to encourage our listeners, if you're struggling today, man, you're only one step away from a God who loves you. You're only one, just thought away. Metanoia is the word that Jesus used for repentance, and it was changing the way that we think. And so whether you're struggling today or know somebody struggling today, it's only one change of the direction, change of the mind that can open up a new life for us. And I love the way that you said, Sean, is that our fruit is hanging on other people's trees or lives. Let's think about spouses, our children, if you have a business, like everything that we do is being produced inside the lives of their life. Why would we not want to produce anything else but righteousness? So let us repent. Let us turn everything back over to him and let him get the glory, man. I just so love your testimony and story. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you, brother.
You opened the door to my next question. And it's a question that in youth group, every teenager would come up to me and say, Pastor Josh, what is my purpose in this life? And, you have a child that turned 10 today. Let's say that she came to the conclusion of, Dad, I don't know why I'm on this planet, or, what meaning is. Have you ever had to wrestle with the meaning of life? And then what
Mm,
conclusion have you come with as far as like what really matters on this planet?
mm. Yeah, I'll use a pretty current or recent image that the Lord just kind of put in my heart. So recently in the United States here, if you're abroad, this may not apply to you as much, but the whole solar eclipse that recently happened was just this massive moment of people going out and seeing creation and seeing just the wow factor, the reality of that. I mean, you look on the news and there's people just openly weeping within the field, right? Or just looking at this thing, maybe in the direct path of it, just the awe of that. I'm not even close to the direct path, but it was cool, man. Like it was a pretty neat thing. I'm kind of a nerd. I like the space stuff, and I'm a big SpaceX follower and all. We have launches here like every 3 days in Florida now. But that moment, the Lord just kind of gave me something. I've shared this with my kids. I've shared this with my small group, even just the reality that when you think about the moon and the sun, and the reality that you have this bright beaming light, this thing that brings goodness, right? Without the sun, like just the warmth of it, like all that it creates for us to be able to live and do well in life, it is provided by this direct amount of distance, all that. Like, believe what you want to believe, but man, if that's random circumstance, I'm sorry, like that just seems far-fetched for me. But the imagery that the sun and the moon in relationship with one another bring for me is this imagery of, if we are from dust, right? From the earth Adam was made, and to the dust he will return, right? We will all die. We'll all go back into the earth in that same way. The moon is a speck of dust, Josh, and the sun creates this beautiful bright light that reflects on it. Now, do we need the sun? Heck yeah, we need the sun. We also need the moon, because the moon creates movement within our earth. And the Lord just kind of used that as this like reminder for me of like, as the moon is impactful on the tides and on the seasons and on the night sky to illuminate darkness, we are a speck of dust to the world. And yet at the same time, if we can reflect the goodness of who God is to the rest of the world, my gosh, like it will absolutely change the world. It will move people just like it moves the tides of the ocean. It will move people. And so to my little daughter, move people. That's our call, through love and through sharing the goodness of who God is in our life, be a reflection of who he is in the world, and just move and motivate people towards his goodness.
That's so good. I love the way it didn't click until like almost the very end, of where it's like, yeah, we're big pieces of dust, and our lives are ultimately reflecting what we make much of or whatever we consume. And it's
Mhm.
like, why not consume the sun? And
That's it.
as we consume, we end up bringing the light of life. That's so good.
Yeah.
Uh, when it comes to transitioning to like your life purpose,
Mm.
and we spend 65%, some of us spend 65% of our waking hours at work. How do we find, or how do we use business or what we do, I don't know, to to be a part of that purpose, because like not everybody is going to be in a pulpit, not everybody is going to be a Sunday school teacher, but like a lot of us are going to have jobs.
Yeah.
Is there a way to redeem what we do and use it for purpose?
Yeah. I know I sound a lot like a preacher oftentimes, but I'll tell you, I love the community more than I love the pulpit and the church and the pews. I tell my believer friends all the time, I love hanging out with non-believer friends more than I like hanging out with believers oftentimes, because the believers have lost the freshness sometimes of that,
Oh,
like
come on.
of like, what's it mean to be real and in the world. And so I truly believe that there's value in goodness, in leadership, in identity. And when you have those things rooted well, and you have a good culture, whatever your business is, whatever your organization is, if you can begin to impute that goodness into the world through everyday interactions, one-to-one interactions, like we call it customer service in the world, right? But the reality is that if you just find yourself getting into a little bit deeper relationship than you would expect from the normal, transaction, right? It's the relational versus transactional, right? We want to be relational. We want to help them get to what they need. And at the same time, we want to be memorable in the ways that we do it. Not memorable just so that they look at my logo of my company and go, yeah, I'm gonna go back to that company. That's meaningful. Yes, we want that. But we want them to think that, man, Josh didn't just have his guys come and take care of my house, but he also cared enough to take care of me. I would trust this guy not only with my business, but I would trust him with my friends. I would trust him with others. And so again, the bearing fruit, if the fruit of our lives is a great business model, that's an awesome thing. Like, we should totally own that and do that. But you look at the ones who have success in life, if life is about legacy, if we are but a speck of dust, don't you want to look back and be like, man, I did it all. Like, I not only crushed it and took care of my family. Providing for your family is like the bar, like just where you start. Providing is hard, and it's when you look above that bar to kind of the legacy of what that will look like. I do organizational identity coaching with organizations and stuff, and when we look down 50-year vision, what does it look like 50 years from now for your organization? The average leader or average person in their company is like, I can barely tell you what's going to happen 3 years from now. I'm not asking you to forecast. What I'm saying is, what do you want to be true about your legacy in your life 50 years from now, and about your organization? And what that question does oftentimes is it makes you get into the mindset of, oh, I'm not leading this anymore. I'm not the person behind the wheel. By then I will have had to have handed it off. Who do I hand it off to? Who is it that I'm currently impacting in my day-to-day work that I need to give this to? Or is there a way that my business begins to bless my community in some way? Is there a way that I dissolve the things that I do as blessings into the community? Whether if I have a massive warehouse that I've been using for 50 years and I don't want to kind of give this to somebody else. I kind of want to just and not just give the business, to somebody else, but I just want to give the building to a charity that I love or I care about, right? Like, oh, now legacy is playing into the day-to-day parts of it, and taking yourself out of that equation is the start of figuring out, oh, this is our way of being not profitable, but kingdom profitable or community profitable for legacy for the future.
Yeah. Give me an example of what apartment life does in order to make an impact. Because apartment life, when you hear of it, it sounds like, okay, they work with apartments. They might help them do what everybody does, and that's maybe get more tenants, make more money. Is there a ministry aspect inside of what you do with apartment life for those who have never heard of it?
Yeah. So we have been around for about 20 years, a little over 24 years in the multifamily industry. And really it was birthed out of this desire of like, hey, people in community need one another, right? If you live imagine the average apartment community is about 300 units. That's about 600 to 900 people on average who live in close proximity with one another. But if you look at the numbers, more than 50% of them have no neighbors that they know by name. So there's no relationship for at least half the people in that community. Well, for the business model, if you're the business owner, there's a major struggle in the fact that your people don't know other people, because the number one driver in resident retention is relationship. And so if people are in relationship with one another, the community becomes sticky, basically, right? It's a little more sticky than not. And so from a faith standpoint, or from an organization standpoint, we answer the question of why are we a faith-based nonprofit working in the business world? Well, we believe also that people were created for community, that community is good for people, right? That when God looked down, what was the one thing that wasn't good? Adam didn't have a mate. He didn't have community. He didn't have his own his own to be with, right? And so we're called in some way to be in community with one another, and God shows us many representations of that. And so, well, what could happen if we sent, people to go in community into these communities to build this sense of community among neighbors by throwing parties and getting to know people and welcoming them when they come into the community, or just being that service to help people when they need it. The property manager's got business going on, right? She's got leases to sign. She's got all those different things. They don't have time to throw a pool party on Friday in the afternoon when really what they want to do is go home and be with their kids. And so Apartment Life comes in and says, hey, we're going to provide that stickiness, that loving person or people to come in and really kind of create the icing on the cake of community and really make people love where they live. And because of that, if you have 0 friends in community, your likelihood to renew is 26%. But if I can help you to make around 6 friends in the community, 6 or 7 friends in the community, your likelihood to renew goes over like 50, 60% at that point. So massive swing in retention for the business model, but yet we're able to fulfill our purpose, and that's to love our neighbor. That's what God's called us to. And so that's really at the heart of it. And what's great is my neighbor isn't the person who believes in what I believe. My neighbor is anybody that the Lord places next to me. And actually, when we look at the story of the Good Samaritan, the neighbor is the one who shows mercy to the other. And so we're called to be a good neighbor to the other people that we're around, regardless of their lifestyle, regardless of their background, regardless of who they are. And that's exactly who God is. God comes to interrupt our lives and be caring and loving and righteous and merciful to the people that are around us. And so we just try to spread goodness through that. And because of that, business makes money. So that's awesome.
If you didn't know by now, we have created the #1 video courses on starting and scaling a pressure washing company on the market.
That's right. But head knowledge will only take you so far. You need the hands-on experience.
So what we crafted for you guys is an Experience Nashville 3-day boot camp. 2 days in the field, learning everything as it relates to pressure and soft washing and how the systems work, and 1 full day of breakout sessions with Joshua and myself. Visit pressurewashingpastor.com, scroll down till you see a link to my calendar. We will grab a call together and figure out how to get you here to Nashville.
And then we will see you in Nashville.
Back to the show.
So if I were to try to explain it to somebody, I would not be able to give what you just gave, but it would be something to the extent that you guys find intentional individuals that are looking to move into an apartment association for the purpose of creating community inside of that group.
And they don't necessarily have to move in anymore. We have a new business model where they can live outside of that community and still host these events and bring people together in the same way.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
We have already chatted for 41 minutes. And so I've got one final question. And in many ways, it's kind of like if you were giving your own eulogy, you could only share one thing. And chances are, if you're giving your own, you name every brother, sister, friend that that you could think of. But is there one overarching message that if you could just leave one message behind, what one message you would want to leave before? And this is much of a legacy move, and like, hey, if I could echo this one thing through time, this is what I would want to echo through time.
Yeah, I would probably just encourage people to trust the process. And by process, I mean the process of God speaking truth into your life. Like oftentimes, I think, especially because I started so late, the reality is I was 27 before I started figuring out my life and getting on the right path, which they say is average for guys. 27 is when we start to actually man up and figure it out. But I think that I feared and worried so much about what I screwed up, right? Like did I mess up too much? Did I go too in debt? There's so many things that were broken in my life. And so God just sweetly spoke into me in that season that he not only redeems time, he redeems people, he redeems place, he redeems all things. And so that showed through in my life, like in that I had $69,000 worth of student debt. And I was like, I'm going to be faithful. I can't pay much, but I'm going to pay what I can pay. I did that for a couple months. And then Sally Mae called and said, hey, the market, this is back when the market tanked. They like, we're looking for cash, basically. If you can settle your debt for $20,000, we'll call it good. And I was like, what? Like, I called my grandmother and she helped give me a personal loan and I paid her back. And, but like 69 grand went away for 20 grand. Like these things these dominoes began to fall. So if you're out there and you are just looking, you're in the hole and you're looking out and you're just going, I don't know how to get there. Trust the process. The process is you being faithful with today. Do what you can do today. Don't worry about tomorrow, as the Bible says. And each day be faithful with the next day. And that process of faithfulness and righteousness will begin to bear fruit that you will see for the next 30 years of your life.
That's so good. As soon as I let you go, I'm going to hit my knees here in my office and just thank God and be present with him.
Amen.
And so I appreciate you reminding me what really matters in our group that are listening. You're working on a book. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Working on a few things. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about the book and, maybe the title, and maybe we can share more once it comes out?
Yeah, I don't have a book yet. You can follow coachingleaders.co is our website. And but the one of the books I'm working on right now is around Ecclesiastes. And this reality of like, what does it look like to live a fulfilled life? I've been talking a lot about legacy today, but you look in Ecclesiastes and there's these like common applications that we kind of miss in day-to-day life. But there are seasons of life, and the Lord has kind of showed those seasons to me, specifically like in your 20s, you're looking for someone to follow. In your 30s, you're looking for a team to build. In your 40s, you're looking for your team to really thrive and pass it on. Like there's just these growth. And so I'm looking at just kind of the milestones of life that the Lord has kind of shown me and how leaders can live out legacy in each of those seasons of life. So.
Well, I know there's a book coming, and once it comes out, we're going to end up maybe sharing more information on it. But Sean, it's been a pleasure. If someone was interested in finding out more information about apartment life or getting in touch with you, would you mind sharing those social handles again? We'll also put them inside the notes of the show.
Yeah, apartmentlife.org is probably the best place to go to, and APT Life, I think, both on Instagram and Facebook, and then coachingleaders.co, LinkedIn, or website.
Yeah, in Apartment Life, they're always hiring, right?
Always. So we have 160 open communities across the country. If you're interested in living out life on mission and caring for your neighbor, we'd love to hear from you.
I love it. Need more marketing for that, man. Cause like I can't, we sign 12,000 kids up every year to be a children's pastor, inside of the same city. And it's like, why don't we have more missional opportunities for kids to move to, or for college graduates? It's just too small and the world's too big. So
yeah. Amen.
So thank you for your time, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Peace.
Peace.